to tonight's regularly scheduled meeting of the Annapolis Historic Preservation Commission on the first Tuesdays of the month. When there are appropriate items to review, we have public hearings and conduct other business. We have a quorum present, and we have city staff who participate and advise us present as well. So would the secretary please call the roll?
Dr. Scott?
Present. Yeah, we have.
Mr. Williams?
Present.
Mr. Cummins?
Present.
Ms. Golder?
Present.
Mr. Groff? Ms. Bannon?
Okay, we have a quorum present, so we will proceed with our meeting. One of the commissioners is not able to attend tonight, so let the record show that he really is not present. John Tower is our staff representative, and Ms. Cheryl Wood is our attorney. So with that said, are there any announcements, John?
Announcements. I hadn't really prepared for that, but let me go into tonight's agenda. We have 3 withdrawn applications. 2 are from St. Anne's Church. One was for fortification of the perimeter of the church fence at Church Circle, and that is going to require an agreement with Public Works. It's also proposing putting the bollards in a public way in the sidewalk. And if you all were paying attention, on 2 occasions, I think 2 large trucks drove into the church fence and then through the churchyard and then out the other side, which I shouldn't laugh about. So they're very interested in stopping that. However, they've proposed bollards at other areas. The other application was for 199 Duke of Gloucester Street, and that was for a generator, an emergency generator. And that was proposed to go in the front of the building, where there is now a small garden, and there was going to be a screening fence around it. But the National Fire Code wouldn't allow for that proximity to the front door, the exhaust being so close to an area that is used by pedestrians. So I think they're going to have to find another location for it. And then 28 College Avenue withdrew, and that was for a couple of reasons. I think one of them that was significant was my staff report was really not favorable. And I should also add that I think I talked to maybe a third of the neighborhood. No one supported the roof deck, but additionally, they wanted to move windows, change configuration of windows, add doors. It's a big application. It really should come back for a third time or possibly even a pre-app. But compounding that, and should I just go right into violations?
Yes. So
compounding that, I had met with the architect, and then this was about violation at 86 State Circle. And at 86 State Circle, the rear porch of that building was removed and rebuilt in pressure treated. And, you know, for those who are in the construction trade, it was sided with T111. T111. Honestly,
I had to be enlightened, but once I was enlightened,
somebody's got to think that's funny besides me. But anyway, so we know that house was designed and built by Alexander Randall. Very significant. It's visually very important. And then on the back, construction had started for a retaining wall, but the permit hadn't been issued, and there was digging into, and I'm not sure about this, but at least the city of Baltimore called me and claimed that there was overdigging on their property, and they have a right of way through the property. Pretty messy stuff. So I suggested that they withdraw because I think the optics of announcing a fairly heavy violation and then coming to present a very unpopular proposal for a rooftop deck probably didn't go well together. But then I need to also add for all of the new commissioners that we have heard this deck proposal before. This will be the third time. And we've heard it also in a pre-application. So if you add them all up, this will be the fourth time. But I agreed to work with the applicant and the architect and to try to create something that is approvable, that meets the needs of the client and gets the house under construction. Because right now, I would say it's nearing demolition by neglect.
Is that all you wanted to comment on right now?
Yes.
Being quite enough, thank you. But I would like to just make a few comments to those applications, those projects, because of the new members. And you may not be aware that, first of all, the Randall duplex is actually odd in the sense that half of it is owned by the city of Baltimore and the other half is in private ownership and has been for quite a while. So it's a little bit of a complicated site, but I think those of you particularly who are in architecture and related professions understand that that is a masterful example of a type of architecture that is not that prevalent in historic Annapolis. So it has more importance and significance and needs extra care as we try to give to all projects. But this one, at least, is dear to my heart. I love it. I think it's so unusual. So anyway, that's a problem, and it's then amplified, as John mentioned. The applicant is also the applicant for the project that we have reviewed so many times that I just want to say for my fellow commissioners to be aware of that the applicant has been here and seemingly been attentive in the meetings, and there's been good exchanges of ideas, but then when the project returns, it seems as though that attention was not really being given. So I feel like we're being generous to even continue to review the project. And I want to see something substantially different. And John, of course, is going to attend to that. And then the other point that I would just make is that we have, because we've been so preoccupied for the recent months with the City Dock project and been spending a lot of time reviewing different aspects of that, I have been neglecting somewhat to remind everybody that it is always encouraged that you make a site visit, and even if that's just a drive-by, so that you become freshly aware of what may have happened that we need to address, or just what the environment is. Because remember, one of our principal considerations is the proposed application going to make a significant change to the environment? And of course, we spent a lot of time talking about that recently with the City Dock project, but that really extends to every application. Okay. So unless there's an announcement from a commissioner for the good of the order, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of March 11th. Are there any corrections or additions?
Motion to approve.
Motion made. Is there a second? You were beaten to the draw. You got to pick it up. Rough day. Okay, will do. All right, so motion made and seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes as drafted signify by saying aye. Aye. The minutes are approved. John, you sort of addressed violations a moment ago. Is there anything else you want to add? Other violations?
So that was certainly the most significant, and I think important from the standpoint of loss of original material, but then proceeding without approval, and then of course a porch has been built. The porch will have to be removed, and we'll have to do our best to recreate the porch that was once there. So, and then the dichotomy of this is that on the other side of the building, there's a wonderful restoration of the hairpin fence, and the windows look wonderful. This is more than a hiccup. This is like a Friday night, had too much and to drink, but
You're on the record.
sorry, but I'm sure we're going to be able to work it out.
I'm sure. Okay. Now I'm a little confused because I think I have a draft of the minutes that isn't absolutely up to the minute because I only see 2 withdrawals. So what should we move on to next? Which project? Yeah. Okay. Yes. That's at the top of my agenda, and that's what was confusing me. So, if the applicants will come forward. At the moment, Mr. Tower is trying to make sure that we're technically ready to proceed, and then I'll ask you to introduce yourselves and begin your presentation. I can't answer that. I think that's what John was trying. I think John's also. Yeah, high security. Well, you know, what's good for the federal government ought to be.
Yeah.
good for
Do you
the
guys
rest
have these books? We can pass those out to each one of the board members. Okay. I think we have 4 of them, 5 of them. Just gives you a better picture.
of us. If there aren't enough, Bill, then I can probably share.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the same thing you're going to present.
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah. It's
okay.
very, very, very similar, but to see it up close might be helpful. So, so I'm George Roberts with Bohan Contracting. This is Billy Wade, also with Bohan Contracting. And you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, into the microphone with the green light
Yep.
on.
Alex Nasta. I am one of the homeowners, along with my husband, who couldn't be here tonight.
Okay, thank you.
So
Thank you all. Please proceed.
appreciate you guys' time for hearing this application. This one is an application with really 2 aspects of it. So first of all, we'll kind of show you guys the elevations of the building. You can see it right through the window. Actually, have you guys visited the property at all?
Not for a close inspection, at least I haven't.
Okay.
Has anyone? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Perfect. So here are some elevation photos of it. Really, the two items we're asking for are on the rear half of the house. And the one section we do believe is a somewhat newer addition. Not new, but so here is the rear elevation. Essentially, if you go down the backside alley, like between the two properties, right here is where we're showing you that these are the proposed HVAC locations, which are already approved through HPC. And then right here, if you look at the window in the middle on the ground floor, that's where we're proposing to swap that out for a door. Currently, the house has no rear egress, and there's really no way to access the rear yard without basically going through the front door and then, as John's report kind of stated, walking all the way down the street, all the way up the alley. And it's highly, you really can't see it from the street. So that's kind of our first proposal there. We have the specs for the door at the end of the proposal, which is a full wood door, true divided light. This is a view from the interior. We currently are undergoing a pretty substantial renovation there. So this would add a lot of value to the house and also safety, in our opinion.
Excuse me, since you have the slide up, normally we would wait for your presentation before we ask for questions from the commissioners, but I would just quickly ask, what is the current use of that space, and was it unfinished, or is this in the midst of renovation?
This is in the midst of renovation. It was converted from commercial to residential. So
Yeah, okay, that's all
Yep.
I needed to know.
Yep.
It's just,
and feel free to shoot questions. We're open to.
well, we just want to give you the latitude to go ahead and make the presentation as
Okay.
you best wish to do that, and then we'll
Okay,
jump in.
perfect. Works for us. This is just kind of an aerial shot showing like where the door placement would be relative to the street, relative to sight lines. So it's that little red crosshair right there. Our next ask, and maybe the more difficult ask, is to the removal of these two windows. So this is the first one. It's in pretty rough condition. It happens to be right above that door that we're requesting as well. It's been leaking. It's completely shot and destroyed. We do, I believe, have administrative approval to rebuild the window and fully refurbish the window. However, like with our new floor plan, it ends up that the wall actually ends up intersecting with the window. So just for longevity reasons of the house, we were debating like back and forth with boarding up the window from the inside, which I know is the preferred method. However, just with the way like the siding is laid on the house, we think it will be a better solution to just fully sheathe over it, and put siding there, and then just not have a question of a leak in the future. This is the interior view of that same window. And then this is the second window that we're proposing to remove. This one has more to do with just the existing site conditions, nothing to do with any floor plan changes that we're proposing. However, you can see how close it is like to the roof line there, and also just like the condition of the actual window. You can kind of tell the sill has been replaced several times just from the amount of buildup that's happened there. This is an interior shot. And then this is really a shot that kind of shows, what kind of damage is likely taking place from, snow buildup, ice damming. And again, like you can tell that it's had work done on it many, many times. And it seems to be a constant problem there. This is just an example of the door that we're looking and proposing to do. These would be, the cedar siding specs that we would put over these windows. And then just the basic site plan here. Here's kind of an elevation also showing in the rear the window to door conversion there, and like in the floor plan adjustments. And then just the historical background. We are aware. William Butler was a very prominent man in the community and had a lot of influence over the community. So we are taking that into account. That's about all we got. So
well,
yeah, George Roberts.
Got everybody else? All right. Well, it is a fairly straightforward application, it seems, and we have had the materials distributed to us. But at this point, I would ask if the commissioners have questions for clarification.
One of the questions I have is when I look at the pictures, it looks like there's 3 and maybe 4 different types of windows on the entire house. Is that accurate?
How many different kinds?
There are a couple different kinds in there, and some of the existing windows have had modifications made to them to bring them up to a semi-modern standard for operation. It's what makes us think that part of that might be an addition, not a new addition, a very old addition, but not really part of the.
That picture what stands out to me the most. I see the 2 windows there compared to the rest. It's just interesting that it's already existing that way.
There are
the
at least
back-
3 types of window.
Yeah, the very back part behind the HVAC units, that is a modern update where a bathroom was added to the house. So that's why those 2 lower windows are drastically different. They're more modern.
Anyone else? Mr. Williams?
Is the window that you want to close off part of the original property, or is it in a subsequent addition?
I think it's part of a subsequent addition. I don't think it's part of the original portion of the house.
Okay, thank you.
Gloucester Street.
No.
Window that is on the roof, is that the only window like that?
Well, in that condition, in that state, there is another one on that roof, but the way it sits, it doesn't get that kind of weather conditioning to it. So it's not in that kind of shape that one's in.
The roof basically like slopes down there, so like the one in the back is like has a way higher lift from the roof. And it is worth mentioning they're looking to invest significant money in improving the roof as well. So this would just be added layer of protection to the house and property. So
you're not proposing to do anything to the roof now, but you know that if you change the roof, you'll at least have to get administrative
Yep.
review.
And we have we've already had some conversation with John Tower on that. Just working through options on that, but
Yeah.
we're certainly going to do something. Yep.
Okay. Ms. Golder?
It was. Okay.
We can work to get John some. In the past, I know like we've usually it is a process to match it exactly. This is what we think is closest right now. But yeah, we definitely understand the importance of making it a clean repair and patch.
So if I could, what they're proposing is a standard replacement material. It's 18-inch Perfections Western red cedar.
Red cedar.
To be stained or into that same or painted into that color that we see on the
Likely.
existing- Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if the siding's part of the application.
Not any kind of like full replace or anything. It's just to patch in. I'll go to the photo just to basically like once we infill the window, we'll patch in those areas, paint it to best match, and then I think full exterior painting is probably down the road for you guys eventually. But
Okay. Well, it does seem fairly straightforward. And if there are no other questions, John, would you present your staff report, please?
There's no question that they need a back door. That's a given. The fact that a very old window, which I'm guessing is actually a replacement window, 120-year-old replacement windows. I think that the 2/2s replace 6/6s, which were from Mr. Butler's original ownership, but there are still some 6/6 windows on the house, including on the on the dormer, and we could check that by looking out the window. These windows are pretty extraordinary. And the house itself, I'm just going to digress a little bit here. The house itself had a lot of, let's say, concerned possible buyers. And the fact that you bought it is wonderful because it was one house that was on the market for a long time. And I have to say that the interior, just for greater overviews, fairly compromised. And it was definitely looking like 1970s office space. And so I think you've had a lot of vision with it. And I think your design's really good. I think it's going to be a wonderful house. So as far as the door goes, as I said, the sacrifice of a single window that is under their porch, I think is absolutely necessary. So they have a route from the kitchen, outdoors, for all the things they need to do. So the guidelines with regard to preserving windows are really strict, even if the windows are neglected or in, let's say, difficult positions. I will also say, not trying to speak against my own proclivities here for preservation, but there are 6 windows in one of the bedrooms. So that's a lot of windows.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not sure exactly how the house was originally laid out. But the guidelines are really strong with regard to windows. So my suggestion was of course, they would need to be restored, or you could literally not restore them. You could cover them on the outside with shutters, or they could be restored and left open. They could be boarded on the inside, which is what I suggested, and then also insulated on the inside. So the window on the outside is maintained. How I've seen it done and how I've done it myself is to paint the backside of whatever covering the window from the interior, paint it black, and then do whatever one might do. So there's still half of a shutter hinge, lift-off shutter hinge on all, I think virtually all the windows on the house. So I suggested possibly putting shutters up, stabilizing the windows, covering them from the inside, closing the shutters. And it's 2 windows. Yes, one of them is in a kind of tricky spot, but now we have a Koya, and it's just fantastic material that is really weather resistant. But again, what we have here is, very serious deferred maintenance and neglect, not from the current owner, but that is the condition that the house was sold in. So to restore a window that you want to cover up is a difficult ask. The only thing that could offset that would be the tax credit that might accompany that. And, naturally, I'm going to advocate for not only the city tax credit, which is 25% of the cost of windows, but also the state tax credit. I would get started on those no matter what anyway. I really wish you luck with the project. George, keep in mind that this is a draft staff report. The reason it's a draft is because we had a comment from Ryan Blomley, who is the plan reviewer, and it was difficult to understand exactly what he wanted. And this is the first time this has ever happened, where he said you must revise the building permit. But of course, he asked for a building permit for work on the exterior of the house, but no work has been done on the exterior of the house. So without this approval, there really isn't any work to revise a building permit. So it's the first time I've ever done it, but it didn't make sense to me. So I'm saying we should definitely hear this and vote on it tonight.
Okay. And just to be sure I understand this and for clarification, you're recommending approval of the applicant's ask and for them to treat the window as you've suggested, one of the options that you've suggested, not to remove it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes on the conversion of the window to the door, and no, I don't. I didn't recommend approval of the two windows.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions, Mr. Tower?
Can you share a little bit more about why the recommendation is to not move forward with the changes that they would like for the two windows?
Well, as difficult as windows are to maintain, once they've been neglected, and that is possibly a candidate for full replacement.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never get the character of that window back, but even with the best materials that are available today, that window is probably 120 years old. It might have last had any good attention 40 years ago. Once you maintain a historic window, it can last for a very long time. But the way that historic windows are considered be like the eyes of the building. And you maintain as much and as many as you possibly can until you have to replace them. Because they are the same windows that reflected the people who lived there, the people who worked on or walked by that house for over a century. And it's one of our strictest guidelines.
Okay, so it's my understanding that we can't say for sure if this was a part of an addition and it was not.
I can date that window.
Hmm?
I can date that window. I'm telling you that window is probably at least 100 years old, maybe 120.
Okay, because I thought I heard that.
Well, you heard that from George.
Okay. Okay, George, try it.
No,
but-
it's okay, but you have to be able to judge an older or historic window. And one of the guidelines also is that changes that have been made that have taken on historic significance should also be treated as significant. Well, that one isn't in good shape. I agree.
It is
I
a
see
2
I see
over
your
2,
expression.
though.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But
It's such
that's
ill
not
repair.
But that's not the point.
Ugh.
The point is to remove it. It's not in good shape, so therefore it should be removed. Is really not an argument that works much for the HPC. That would be demolition by neglect.
What's the period of the original structure? What's the date?
Pre-1877.
And
And
you're
I don't
basing
know
that on
the-
a Sanborn map?
It's earlier than the Sanborn map.
Huh.
Yeah, there it is. And Butler owned a lot. He also owned the house next to City Hall. He owned the house right over here, which is pretty grand. And this is all in my staff report, but he created a lot. He created Butler's Row on Market Street. He sold the lots that created Baptist Church there, which is now residential. So this was one of his properties, but directly across from where he lived.
So in my view, the period of significance is the original structure that fronts on the street. And these windows are part of a subsequent addition. No?
I'm not saying they're an addition.
That's what my
Right.
interpretation would be.
Right. But even so, if it were an addition, then the windows are extremely old. So, if it's subsequent to the original structure, it still has significance.
I think something that's interesting about this building is, having walked through it, there are multiple iterations of the building. So I don't know exactly when something was renovated or added on, but there
So
was
you walked through it before,
yes.
right?
So there's absolutely different parts of the building for reference, and it was a little bit choppy. So to John's point, I commend you for the work that you're doing there. When I look at this, I think the front facade is what's really important. I think that's something that would be difficult if anybody ever suggested to change that. I don't know that I could be in support of that, but the rear of the property really is kind of covered up. I mean, the funeral home's right there, kind of the parking lot backs around. There's lots of trees. St. Mary's is right behind it. So I don't really see that view being encumbering anybody else's. And then the fact of the matter that there's already 3 separate types of windows on the building, in addition to your comment, John, about how some rooms even have 6 windows. I don't see
six over 6.
Oh, okay, I got
Right.
you. Well,
That's-
my point is, there's
right.
3 separate windows here. For me, I don't necessarily see a problem with the removal.
Any other questions for Mr. Tower? Well, at that point, Cecil's really begun our discussion about where we stand. And before we go further, I would just ask the applicant, you've reviewed the staff report and discussed it with Mr. Tower, so you understand that we're down to the point of really just wanting to clarify how we treat it, right? Okay. So anyone else want to address?
I just have a question as a group here. So is it all or nothing that we vote on replacing both windows or not replacing both windows? Or can it be we suggest replacing one window and keeping one window?
We can do that. When we have the staff report, we can amend that staff report by saying we exclude a condition in the staff report, add a new condition in the staff report.
I just want to say, I think sealing up the window and then having a fake window on the outside is just silly. That's the reason. I don't agree. Remove as the applicant's.
Okay, we have 2 of the members very clearly stating, I think, let me be sure I understand, approve with the staff condition.
No.
Okay, approve, but without the condition that,
Approve as applied.
okay, all right? Okay.
The one window which is in particularly bad condition, in order to maintain the appearance of a fenestration without having a fake window, if I could suggest, would be to basically frame out the opening and pocket back a fraction of an inch or an inch, inch and a half. So the ghost, if you would, of the window still remains with the building, giving the impression of an old fenestration, which has been filled, but still exhibits the patterning of the original property. I'm suggesting that might be a compromise between the 2.
Do you understand what Bill said?
I do. So this window here, that could probably be a possibility. The other window, the house almost has 2 layers of siding on it, so that siding's pulled out. Almost proud of that window. So to do a false window, we would have to extend that window frame out, or even to pull it back, we have to fill that space in to keep water intrusion from coming in there to make it a solid space. Where if we just eliminated those 2 windows, we could fill it back in with the siding and match it pretty close to not be able to tell that the windows were ever there. And that room there that we're talking about, that room does have 6 windows in it. So that room would still have, 4 other windows.
I'm not concerned about the number of windows in the room, not in the room. I'm concerned about the historic representation, what I'm thinking. And the lower one, I see definite possibility of doing the ghosting. The one that we have up high, I'd still like to see glass in it. So I'm sort of going both ways. It really depends. I'm treating them as two different presentations. Because the lower one on the roof, that one I could see ghosting. The problem I have with the lower one not being maintained or being maintained as a window is that one. Yeah. The reason I'm doing this with the lower or the one with the roof is because it's so close to the roof. It's going to always be a nightmare between snow and rain and everything else. That it just gets abused. This one, unfortunately, is in horrible shape as well. But I'm looking at that one and saying that, if necessary, you could build new sashes. It takes work, it takes effort. It is not as easy as just closing it off.
That window also faces the neighbor's house, and it's inside. Even standing in the backyard, like it's up tucked inside the house. Standing in the backyard, or even catty cornered out on the side street,
I understand.
you can't see that window at all.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you. I do understand.
Okay. Ms. Golder, did you want to say anything else? You seem lost in thought.
And of course, the door as well. But I feel that if there is one that can be salvaged, it would be the one that is not up against that roof line.
Okay. I think, yes.
Either way, I want to say that if the window, if they both get closed off or anything, I would still like to see them both ghosted at least, because that maintains the history of the building that otherwise is totally ignored.
So what are you saying for a recess for the shingle?
Well, I'm concerned that it's going to be, if we go too deep, it's just going to create another ledge. So it would almost be a recessed picture frame in that you still have an edge enough to give you a shadow line. And that's judgmental, I know.
Half an inch?
Half an inch, 1 inch.
Do you think you can do that?
Like place sheathing in, like inset,
You inset the sheeting, yeah.
and then just shingle over it. Do you want us to keep like window trim or?
I'm suggesting just a pocket.
Okay.
If trim is easier to see that it is weatherproof, I mean, it comes down to getting that return, that joining, in such a way that it won't be a future maintenance headache.
I wonder if that's the intention, that maybe just using trim and keeping like the same plane might be better and easier to waterproof long term.
It's possible, but at the same time, if the finish existing on the building is of a thicker material, and I don't know what, I do know the cedar, it's cedar there. I don't know how thick it is or anything like that. It would be possible to create that frame with the finish. And since we don't want to do a false history, that interior finish you would not want to use a cedar shingle, because you're then kind of representing it as part of the original, in my opinion. Is that a bad take, Mr. Tower, as far as creating a
If the window opening were recessed and then shingled over with cedar, I think that's fine. I mean,
Okay.
we do it with brick buildings. When a window is removed, the infill brick is recessed, typically half
true.
an inch,
Yeah,
and you don't have to use a different material.
Okay.
It's
That's
just
fine.
the form of where the window was is is maintained.
And that's basically what I'm suggesting here.
I think so. Yeah.
So if I may, can you go back to the picture where it shows the entire back of the house? Because I really respect and appreciate your perspective there. But the thing that I keep getting held up on is those two windows right there on the lower have no respect to the time, and that was already done. So when I think about the windows that are there, if there's something else done that's like a fake window, we're now going to have a fourth variation of windows on the back, which I feel like is going to make the feel of the place even further from the original.
Let me make sure you understand. I'm not suggesting a window should be fake. I'm saying the window should actually be there. But if they want to cover up the inside, they can.
I don't know that would be consistent with keeping up with the whole look. And I think the whole look right now is inconsistent in that sense. So it feels like we're trying to fit a square in a circle, because I definitely appreciate where you're coming from, but I think we know that the back is different than the front at some time. Maybe the back was built 120 years ago. And the
Cecil,
front
how much of the back is different?
Huh?
How much of the back is different? I think it's already been stated that there's a bathroom addition on the rear that has those two 1/1 windows. That's what's there.
So anyway, my perspective is, because there's already different windows, because this view cannot be seen by anybody except for those who walk in the backyard and the immediate neighbor. And I don't know if the immediate neighbor is here to object or not. I don't think
We didn't get any public comment.
I think that it's asking them to keep that window there and the condition is in, and do something behind it or something. I feel like it's I don't know. I don't know that I feel like that's necessary.
Well, I think we've had a good discussion, and it's actually one of the classic example based on my short number of years on this commission, where it comes in and it looks like it's extremely straightforward, but there are significant issues. And then we get to discuss them and get input from different points of view, and hopefully we create something in the end that accomplishes the goals of historic preservation and makes this property useful to the applicant. I tend to agree with Mr. Williams that there is a reasonable, not terribly burdensome solution that preserves the intent of the historic preservation code in keeping that sense of history and honoring the older, the parts of the city that are covered intentionally as periods of significance. So I think it's a reasonable alternative, but
I would say, okay. I see the proclivity here. There's a lean this way, and I think if that is the direction that the commission is going in, absolutely, we want to. I would ask that the proposal be modified so that we could have the area where the windows have been removed to be recessed, and to delineate that there was once a window in that position.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, so you had mentioned that you wanted to see them stay. You had mentioned maybe one of two. I think the rear window, at least in my opinion, is probably one that has more significance in terms of the facade. Is something like, if they kept the rear window and allowed the removal of the side window, is that something that we all could?
Is the rear window the roof window or the non?
Well, the roof window, but they would have to put something behind it or something. I don't know. Unless it's the opposite. If you wanted the roof window to be removed and allowed and the side window had.
The issue
That's-
with keeping the rear,
Oh, I just wanted to clarify. I would suggest the window on the roof
yeah.
be removed.
yeah,
The issue with that window is proximity to the roof, and historically that situation is prone to leak and rot. It's just a bad situation. It was built bad, and I'm assuming that is the juncture of the addition as well.
You would be in favor potentially of allowing them to remove that as long as they kept the side one in place.
Well, I'm
They're-
not saying it's an either or.
I'm saying that.
Yeah, he's
This
not
one,
saying.
I'm fine with this one as just a pocket, just to get rid of it, get rid of the burden of the maintenance, the issues that unfortunate situation is going to be to whoever owns the house at any time. The other one, I don't see the burden in that other than either replacing the window or repairing it, which the house itself is, for good or bad, is not in the greatest shape. And
Well, I think we've had
unfortunately, you're having to deal with it.
a pretty thorough discussion, and there does seem to be a division of opinion. So I would call for a motion that addresses the concerns of the commission.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. And
Do we want to give Ms. Golder a moment and then hear her motion?
And it sounds like you're writing it down. So
I am.
Is
I
it
think
is
I'm
it the
here.
removal of the door, the removal of the roof window? As
I'm
long
gonna
as they
make
keep the
you. I'm
pocket?
gonna make you struggle to find out what it is. But you're going down the right vein. I'm gonna add to the mystery of it all.
This is really three different decisions. It's not really one.
It is. It's three different decisions, and I'm treating it as such. So here is my attempt. I move that the exterior second floor right side window be removed. The exterior second floor left side window be retained with modification, and the addition of the door, replacing the window, be added.
Okay, can we get some subtitles?
I was trying to get everything.
Is that was it,
And footnotes?
Was it the right side and the left side, or is it the back?
Oh no, that's what the diagram. I copied exactly as the diagram has.
This is the left side window,
Mm-hmm.
and then this is the right side
Yep.
window.
Oh,
I
right,
grabbed
I got
those
you.
headers exactly as they are written there. So if they messed it up, that's on
Gotcha.
them.
Well,
We have to.
and I second
allow
that
for a
motion.
second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Is there further discussion of the motion?
I'm sorry, I guess I'm dense tonight.
Your motion is to let this one go away.
Correct.
Okay, and the other one be repaired.
As you have with
Okay.
the modifications that you stated.
Okay,
You-
I just,
Either repaired
mean-
or framed to show that it existed, or which one?
I know that you're not a fan of it, Erica. I'm trying to, keep part of the baby and part of the water. So the modification that he suggested,
Being shingled over but keeping a frame to show it existed?
Well, a pocket, a
The
material
pocket.
difference, change, something clearly indicates that it
That
was there.
there was a
It's
window?
Just
whatever
wants
it
to
is,
know.
it should have a shadow line.
Can it be their choice to do that or repair it?
If they want to repair the roof window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not the roof window. That one we're saying
Mm-mm.
goes.
yeah.
Oh, that's the one I'm saying.
The roof
pocket.
window goes.
This one, I have no problems with
That
them
one
repairing
can
it.
go. The other one, they either can shadow box it, like you're saying,
Shadow box,
or
yes.
repair it, but not obliterate it with no evidence.
That
of
one
it.
I don't believe should be obliterated.
Okay.
Yes, we are saying the
All right,
same
so
thing.
we're all
Yeah, yours,
saying
that's
that.
what your motion said.
That's what.
So I
Richard said.
believe it was this is the window that gets pocketed with the cedar siding, correct?
Yeah.
That one can go.
that one can go completely.
Go, but leave an
No, it
impression on the
doesn't have to
building,
be-
No.
No.
or
You
or
can
just
just
Do
completely
what you,
go.
what you originally
Perfect.
proposed.
Leave it.
This one leaves an impression.
That one.
That's what I
Yeah.
think. He was saying leave a pocket.
Wait. We are getting lost
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the confusion.
Can we split the
of
vote into
which-
3 votes?
Yeah, that would be.
You can.
Yeah.
Okay,
you can,
so part
you
1
can.
of 3 should be the door. I think everybody's on the same page about that.
Okay, then.
So we
Wait.
first of all, I have to rescind the initial motion if we're going to do other
Yeah.
3 separate motions. You can only have one at one time. So,
So you're
let
withdrawing
me
the motion.
start by withdrawing the motion.
Okay.
And
So-
I am going to next do the easiest one, and that is, I move that the window be removed and replaced by a door on the back side of the home.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion for clarity? You remember, you can make a motion, you can't really discuss it and debate it, but you can clarify it. So is there any need for clarification? All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Door only.
Aye. Mm-hmm.
Door only. Okay.
That's the easiest.
Yeah. Well, we're
All
moving
right.
along.
All right. The next, I'm trying to decide which is the next easiest one, if there is such a thing. Okay. I move that the exterior second floor window be removed.
The one that's up now?
On the
That-
roof?
Yes. And be as the original application suggests.
What did the original application?
Remove.
To remove it
And just
Yeah.
let it go
just-
away.
yeah,
and shingle
remove.
over.
Okay. Is everybody clear about the motion? There's a second for that motion.
That motion.
Okay. Second. So all in favor of the motion that's on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Okay. It passes.
Okay.
Passes 4-1, 4-2.
42.
3. Yeah. 4.
Yeah, 40.
And the last one. I move the interior second floor left side window be retained with modifications of a shadow or pocket box.
Second to that motion?
But can we say or?
Or
Yeah,
repair.
that's what she said.
You said or
No.
repair. Is that a possibility to have in there? Like if they
Of
want.
course,
Okay.
it
Or
is.
repair,
Of course, it is. Everything's
right?
always
That's-
possible.
That's their choice, one or the other.
So we will say, I will amend it to say shadow box, pocket box, or replacement with restoration.
Is that clear, John?
Well, I think so. So, if the window were to be removed, then if the infill would require shadowing,
Mm-hmm.
and otherwise, if it stayed in place, it would require replacement.
Correct.
Mhm.
Restoration.
Right.
Yep.
And that's clear to the applicant. Okay. Motion made.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Yeah.
Thank
You're welcome.
Thank you. And good luck.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, guys. Perfect. Anything needed from us?
Just more. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll resubmit this and then perfect. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Pass that
Thank
way.
you. When's the open house?
Yeah, when's the open house? Why is it still not right?
Your breath, or you're going to see the
I
shadow.
tell you.
Yeah.
The joys of collecting birthdays.
Use that.
I tell you.
No, roof one. No one's ever.
I know, right? We're almost through. I think we only have one more, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing is that I don't think
Yeah,
well
it
enough
seems to be
documented
confusion on
that
which ones
position
were
is
withdrawn and which ones were kept.
visible enough from the
And we
public
kind
way
of,
to make
yeah.
me want
And we need
go to
John.
that.
He's out there in the audience because he knows which one is the remaining.
not sure what these but
Yeah.
excuse me, sir. Are you the gentleman that wants to talk about the billboard? No? Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, that's withdrawn.
I'm done.
Yeah, yeah, because we don't have an updated set of agenda. This is what's confusing me because my version of the agenda does that.
Build these.
Yeah, right.
He might
So we
need
better
the
get
password.
that straight. Tell her
You might need the password.
what you're. It was up. It's on the machine, isn't it? Didn't you say it was on the machine?
He was saying he doesn't have HDMI on his.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Oh, it's hard to. Yeah. Well, it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that would, since I've been on the commission, been permitted in that shape. I mean, it's not that they shouldn't be allowed to do that, but they should have done it more in harmony with the rest of the building, which wouldn't have been expensive or difficult.
But now it has new historic structure.
Really don't get this. Of course, I haven't had a chance to read it carefully. No, Hmm? Okay. I'll give it a good wrap. So they were here. Yeah. There's that. Thing.
But
I spot. Oh,
they have before.
are you ready to go? Oh, okay. You can enter that into the record, but since you only have one copy, is it just one copy or yeah? it's not a help because now we can't see it. So, better to struggle to get that going. Say what? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I remember I'm of a different generation than you, and I. What? Hmm? Now I'm. There's no one who wanted. User. Yeah, she's talking to the tech.
Make it work.
You know, screen cap? Bill? Please. Mirror on your. Oh, yeah, like when you have a phone mirror. Uh, yeah, yeah, and add new features. So you think you've got something. Well, different icon. My boys get frustrated. You do it like that. Yeah. Do it. Doing it like this. Yeah. Works just as well. Rather change pace. It was a formal way. What are they doing? Wait, so is he keeping up Outlook on? But we have that. We all have that on price. Yeah, that's true. I do actually. I email it to Pete. Yeah, yeah. No, he's trying to get his presentation. If you can't, I can plug into my email. I can, if it's not fixed there, I can plug it, I can go contact it.
Brad. Like a little. Yeah.
Well,
John, I can log into my email and pull it up right now. I haven't. Well, I'll just go on that laptop. Want me to do that? Well, I will do it on that.
that's the city laptop you're talking. Yeah, not his person. Yeah.
Be clear.
Would have wanted to overlooking the fact that minutes only.
All right. I'll stare. What is
Yeah, probably. Could the applicant approach me, please? It doesn't seem like your application will take a long time for you to present. Am I correct? Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would assume. Would it be a difficulty, a burden on you to come back for our meeting on the fourth Thursday? Rather than, because this seems to be taking much longer than any other similar occurrence. I'm not sure we can solve it. Well, I think we've gotten ourselves, yeah, we don't know, there's all kinds of problems. I would prefer, if it's agreeable to you, to reschedule you for the. We're good to go. Excellent. Excellent. I move that all government entities have newer, updated operating systems and equipment.
Yeah.
No? I retired 11 years ago, and stuff was outdated then, and to the best of my knowledge, has not been updated. Not from the. Huh? You good to go? John? Hey. Very good. I apologize for the confusion that I had earlier, but I find that when I try to print off the agenda, it's sent to me in a digital form, that if I try to print it off on legal size paper, it drops a couple of lines from the first page. So we'll have to work to address that. I apologize for the delay, but the applicant is present, and now we've gotten the electronics sorted out. So please introduce yourself and give your presentation.
There you go. Okay. Would you like me to state my name again?
Yes, we need it for the record.
My name is Cameron DeGast. Thank you all for being here tonight to go over this application with us. We are proposing to do a lime wash on the brick chimney on 16 Revel Street. here's a picture of the house as it exists now. You can kind of see where there's at least 2 different types of brick there. I think there was a 3rd-story addition at some point, and then it almost looks like there's 3 variations. I don't know if that's just in the mortar or in the brick itself. So that's what we're looking at there. And here's a few examples of the look we're going for. It's not a solid whitewash per se, but it's a lime wash, leaving some of the brick still exposed. There's an example of the house at 76 Shipwright Street, and that's kind of similar to the look we're going for. And then there in the middle, there's a rendition of the proposed look for the chimney. Here's a little bit of info on the products that we intend to use. We want to use a German schmear technique, which I think can be achieved by creating a mixture of this product at a kind of more thickened consistency to leave not completely full coverage of the brick. Couple more examples here, and just showing some differences of the lime wash look compared to the whitewash. This is a non-permanent product, so it does fade naturally over time. It's an all-natural product, and it's not one of the imitation kind of coverings that you see sometimes. This is a product that's been around for a long time and is been used for thousands of years to preserve brick and add a certain aesthetic. Here's a little quote that we pulled from the HPC, and I think that this kind of goes in line with what we're seeking to do here with this brick. I think that's it.
You probably aren't aware of it, but we've had some extensive discussions of lime wash recently, and it's made us more familiar with the product. And I think the commissioners probably have some questions related to their own knowledge and experience and our recent discussion. Anyone want to ask questions?
What's the age of the house and what's the age of the chimney?
The age of the house, I couldn't tell you exactly for the original structure, but this house has gone many renovations throughout the years, and I believe at least the upper half portion of the chimney is circa early 2000s, late 90s, when that 3rd-story addition was added on.
Yeah, I think John mentioned in the report that 25 years ago, I think the house was completely rebuilt. Is that right?
It wasn't completely rebuilt. This is one of those houses that is very, very difficult to, let's say, get a historic read on. The Sanborn map in 1921 has it at 2 stories, but then a 3rd story was added in the 90s. But you look at it and you think, well, okay, pretty seamless.
Yeah.
So that would be what we would consider a false sense of history, because you literally can't differentiate, and that's where the chimney comes in.
Just architecturally, the chimney just doesn't feel like it's composed with the overall.
Yeah, exactly. Are there other questions for the applicant?
Can you take us back to the picture of the chimney with the lime wash, where you're showing the 2 different types of
Here?
finish?
The front or the first slide.
Before and
There you go.
Yeah.
And that is just that's a Photoshop just kind of rendition to try to get a visual of what we're going for here.
Is what you're going for to make it the chimney less obvious?
I think that the fact that there are two different bricks there kind of causes a little bit of not the prettiest visual. And yes, the house is a white in color, which would be the same color of the lime wash product.
Would you consider just whitewashing, just make it white? I
That
do.
that could be considered. I think it would be cool to kind of leave some of the brick exposed, just as a touch to kind of go for that German schmear look that's traditionally used with like a mortar, and this is a little bit more of a less permanent option to kind of achieve that look, as it does fade over time with the weather.
Oh.
No.
See how in the picture the bottom of the brick looks white? Is that true? Is that in the bottom of both of the pictures? Is the
bottom of the brick
actually
is
painted?
white currently. Yes, at the foundation of the house near ground level.
That's how it looks?
That's correct.
Is that white paint?
I like that.
Is it white paint?
I believe so.
That's just peeled over.
To give the lime wash effect.
Let me ask you a couple questions about the application and effect that you're seeking. I learned all this in our recent meetings with another applicant. Would you personally be applying the lime wash?
No, I would be overseeing the process.
Have you used this product before?
No, but it was recommended to me through a trusted painting contractor in Annapolis to me, and he does have some experience with the product.
Okay. One of the things that struck me about the discussions we've had recently is that the application is crucial, that the person who does it has to have experience doing it so that there can be a consistency of effect. And you're telling us that that effect is something of importance to you and your client, right? So what is there to guarantee that what you're presenting to us this evening as a computer-generated indication of what it can appear like, how do we know that's what's going to actually happen?
Thanks for the question. I understand what you're saying. It really does come down to the application of the product on there to achieve this certain look. I think the product is water dilutable. And it's also within 5 days of application, very easily removed with moderate pressure water. After that,
I was going to ask about that, so let me jump in here.
I do have some technical specs on the product.
You could strip it back to the bare brick within 5 days,
Yes,
and then you could apply again if you thought that you could achieve the effect that was your original desired result.
that's correct.
Okay, that's all I have for the moment.
If I could.
Yes.
What is the removal process?
So after that 5-day period, the chemical reaction with the lime and whatever else is in there, I can't speak to all of those off the top of my head, but it is removable after 5 days with a high pressure washer.
Okay. Now, in your slides, I mean, you have this one where it's sort of a cloudy mix going up the chimney. You had other slides where it was patchy or almost looked like it was flaking, similar to your white at the bottom of your chimney. What is the actual application you're seeking to apply? What do you expect this to look like?
Um,
And I say that because you showed a couple of your slides back, you showed a couple different versions.
And let me just kind of
The-
flick through
like-
here. Like there was an example on Shipwright, and that's I think a real German schmear with like a mortar. So that is a little bit of a different look, but that is kind of what we're trying to mimic. So
Okay.
I'm hoping that these differences in these photos just kind of give a broad idea of the look that we are going for.
And that's fine,
Um,
but I just was wondering which one was your ideal. And so is this this Shipwright?
Yes, I would say kind of, the middle picture is Photoshop, so I don't do that every day. Sorry for the, but we want to leave some of the brick exposed while adding some texture and letting it blend into itself and the house a little bit better.
Do we have a pointer? 'Cause if I'm going to do something I don't want to
Get up.
pretty well covered.
Yes.
They can't hear you.
So, Bill, it's still semi-transparent on 76 Shipwright.
What I'm trying
Right.
to clarify is that's fairly white. We have patchiness on here, which occurs. Thank you. I got it. Which you have the patchiness, you have an area which is kind of covered. We have areas of wash, and to me that exhibits quite a bit of age. And I am guessing that is what you're trying to get, is you get an aged appearance for your building. So the Photoshop, not against your skills, but the Photoshop doesn't present it the best way for what you want. Am I correct?
I would agree with that.
Okay. So let's say we're looking at the top left square on the right-hand area of the slide.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're after? Yes, where the arrow is. Where the arrow is, yes.
That is the general look that we are going for. And
Okay.
as you said earlier, it is a hand applied technique, and I think when it is all said and done, there will be a little bit of variation throughout the chimney, just kind of like that one on Shipwright looks like.
I'll tell you what my concern was,
Sure.
is we get a consistent whitewash pink brick chimney. And what you're telling me is, what I now understand is we're going to have brick showing, we're going to have white scattered amongst it, some areas dense, some areas light, so it exhibits that aged chipped paint whitewash effect, not what I consider a wash in particularly, because
Like that on the right side
the
where
far
it's
the
where it's
far-
very saturated. Is that what you are referring to?
this
Okay.
So the far left is what I'm picturing you're doing, or close to that. Maybe not as white or as splotchy, but
Yeah, and maybe varying throughout a little bit.
yes, yeah, very.
But trying to get the look that it's been like that for forever, and aged over time off the bat, and then, like I said, over time it is going to continue to age and change look
Yeah.
as well.
Yes. And just for reference, that is going to be easier to get than it would have been on a larger building with much more brick, where you can get a variation from one end to the other, and you don't see it until it's finished, and no one really noticed it while they were doing it.
Right.
That merges right into my biggest concern at the moment. Are the applicants present? The owners of the property, rather?
No.
Oh, okay. Then it becomes even a bigger concern to me. You and us can come to an agreement on something that's an acceptable result. But the client still has the final say. What would happen if we said we approve X and you went back to them and they said, no, that's not what we wanted. That's not what we expected. Or you did the job and they said, no, I want you to redo it because didn't turn out to what we wanted. What's going to happen then?
Not turned out to what you wanted, or not to turn out what the homeowner wanted?
The homeowner.
Um,
Because they're not here, so they're not hearing our discussion. They can listen to it later. But that's part of, I think, what concerned us in our previous review of lime wash, and it concerns me tonight. We can sit here and talk about something, and we could all agree, okay, that's an acceptable thing, and we'll approve it. And then it might turn out to be something else.
I gotcha.
And not because of any fault or inappropriate usage or work by you. It just, that's the nature of the material. It seems kind of had a little bit of a life of its own.
I gotcha. So I would say that I'm here to advocate for my client tonight, and if whatever we discussed tonight is approved, that is my intention, and I would be there to oversee this and make sure. And as far as the question of what if the client doesn't like it, well then.
Yeah. Well, if you've got your money, you can say, go talk to Mr.
Right, no,
Powell.
well, typically for any project like this, any proposal like this, the condition is that I would work with you on site, and that we would set up a test patch, and then go from there.
Yeah,
there you go.
And
That
I could-
addresses my concern.
As I say, I could provide some context. So the last application that we looked at, they were doing a full paint, not necessarily the German smear, the Classico, where it's patchy, but they were doing full paint, and there was a huge variation in the parts of water, I guess per liter maybe, or something like that, of how it looked. And so for us, there was a huge amount of context and detail around how much water is being used to dilute the paint, because we want to make sure that if we're going to vote on what the product will look like at the end, it's one way, not another. So I think that's a little bit of context to understand where he's coming from. To me, when I look at this, I see the Classico lime wash, and I know that the German schmear, that picture is a little bit blurred, but it looks to me like it's a very consistent style. Obviously on the brick.
Consistent, inconsistent.
Consistent in the way that the stylistic theme.
Yeah.
So I feel like, is the client specifically requested the Classico lime wash or the German schmear, saying this is the end result? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so, I mean, it seems to me in all the pictures I've seen, it does seem pretty consistent in terms of that style. So I feel like we could probably say this style has to be it with John's oversight.
I'm happy to work with Mr. DeGast. And, full disclosure, I think I've known Cameron since you were what? I don't know, 4? Or was it 3?
How old are you?
I'm that
I'm just
old.
kidding, Chris,
Hold
I'm
on,
old.
hold on, Will. I'm that old. But our kids would play at Green Street together, and so Cameron isn't so different in age from my daughter. How old are you, Cameron?
Oh, Jesus.
No, don't have to put that
On the record?
No.
Right. So I'm just saying, this is, I'm not going to find it difficult to work with Cameron. I hope he doesn't find it difficult to work with
Well,
me.
that's the real question.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Because I can be difficult.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions of the applicant before we take the staff report? Okay, then. Thank you. And you can remain seated, and we'll ask for Mr. Towers' report.
Thank you.
So this house has undergone many changes, and if you look carefully at it, even from the street, there's an infilled porch. The columns are still there, and then there are large casement windows around it. But you really have to look to see it. So it's hard to differentiate any of the pieces because it presents itself as a whole. The one thing where the one item, one element that you can see a difference between the old and the new is the chimney. and there's a break in the chimney. And that differentiation is still possible to see. So for that reason, I recommended not lime washing to keep that one progression of change for the house apparent. But this is, I also want to say this house has been changed so much that its historic value is its actual, I think, current state, that it's going to be maintained in this condition, this state moving forward, that it's going to age as it is now. I don't think it's going to undergo another significant renovation, although I have to say the house has been worked on quite a bit over the years. Right, exactly, including by me. So its period of significance, in my opinion, might have started when Senator Bill Brock lived there, and it's the form that it has now is the same as when he lived there. Changing the chimney. I was reluctant to say, oh, we shouldn't do this because it's this one historic progression that you can see. But Mr. DeGast is proposing something that's reversible, and that's fine. I'm the one who walks around and looks for the subtle differences. A lot of people don't see them. Yeah, I know I'm in a minority, so it's. I really think this is up to the commission. Is that one differentiation important to maintain? And honestly, for what reason? So
I don't mean to be tedious, but because I lost that portion of the agenda, and I also lost your staff report.
Mhm.
Could you just read your recommendations?
Yeah,
Sure.
I've got it pulled up. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, it is. Lime wash is what is being proposed here. It's not really very different from whitewash. Those two are compatible. It's calcified lime and water. That's
So
what
they're
it always was.
synonymous.
Sorry,
They're synonymous.
right.
The result is I wouldn't
However,
classify it together.
however, the technique that's an advanced technique. 76 Shipwright didn't look like that on its first day, and what was common was you would hire a painter, not necessarily a mason, and they would come and put whitewash on a house. I worked on one house, the Cheney House on Cheney Road in Cheney, Maryland, and the account book was still in the house, and I think the inside and out, the exterior and interior, the entire house was whitewashed for $12 and like $18.70, $12, right? So they just slap it on. You'd see the brush marks. It wasn't fine work. This is actually an interesting technique. So
Okay. I don't have any other questions, and unless there's discussion one by one about how you feel, I would entertain a motion.
I motion for approval as applied.
Wait. Oh yes, thank you.
there were no public comments.
Well, yeah. Is there anyone present who wishes to
Would
comment?
either of you guys like to get up and speak in favor or against?
We don't know who he is.
Sir, thank you
It's
for the
not on the
comments, but could you come to the microphone at the podium and introduce yourself for the record?
Oh, there we go. Is that good?
Are you getting that?
Can you hear it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Doug
you.
Spanner, Eden Contracting. These people have been my client for 12 years. Cam is coming on board. We're sort of making a transition, so he's handling this this hearing as well as maybe another one that's going to come before you with a porch. But they are intent on spending money to repair and maintain this house. There, like John said, there really isn't much historical components left. But
Okay.
everything's been done with all the permits and all the approvals. So, sorry. It's Doug Sanner, Sanner. Doug? Yeah. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Okay. And now another little
Yep.
nicety for the legal profession. Do you swear that the testimony you just presented is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Absolutely. I do.
Thank
Yep. Thank you.
you. Right.
Before you issue your motion, I'll just issue a comment for the good of the order. On that street, in my opinion, most of these houses, if not all of them, have been completely redone and are new houses. This one actually is one of the ones that still has nice character. In my opinion, this chimney, painting it in that fashion, would actually add to the character and almost improve the streetscape and facade. And then the fact that you were even reluctant to potentially say no just because of the two variations in brick. And I actually think that this might add character, to that. I think it might look better than the two variations. So I want to just add that. I don't know if anybody has any alternative opinions that I'm missing.
That's
have
what
an
we're doing
opinion.
right now. Huh? What did you
Just
just
that I have an opinion,
Please share it.
if I may. I find the technique interesting. I find what you want to do fascinating. I'd like to see it done. I want you to let me know if you do it, that I'd probably be standing there watching you, finding out what's going on. Historically, I was thinking about it in general, is if someone was to throw a chimney up and later come back with other brick that didn't quite match, they would try to find a way to get it to unify. And in doing so, they may well have whitewashed the whole chimney. Then over time, it flakes. In putting this on where it's flaking off, coming off, we have created, and I'm going to say the horrible thing, a false narrative. At the same time, it is a narrative I think I could live with just because it unifies the building. What is being attempted to be done is what could have been done historically, which again is a false narrative. But I don't see that much of an issue on this one.
My only comment is that I'm sure we're all familiar with the Washington Monument, and the Washington Monument has two different colors of stone because construction was interrupted by the Civil War. So there's historical precedent to keep the two colors of brick.
You sure that wasn't a high watermark?
Yes.
Okay.
But now I have to admit, I'm just jesting with you. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any need for clarification of that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Go forth and prosper.
Thank you for your time.
Well, hold on.
Hey.
There's a condition, though. The condition of approval is that I
Oh, yes.
work
Yes.
with the applicant
I'm sorry.
to
Yeah.
establish what you're going to do in a sample.
There. And I
Right.
think you already agreed to that.
Right.
Very good. Thanks for clarifying that, John. All right. Then our agenda business is complete except for any other business and administrative business. And John, we did discuss an administrative issue.
Right. So we have with us, and hopefully he'll be able to use this laptop for a presentation about the City Dock billboard. F. Brock.
Okay, if you'll come forward, and I'll just share with the commissioners. Mr. Brock wants to come forward and suggest something that he has in mind as a way to address the billboard that's been so long on Dock Street. And this is not a
Okay.
work session.
And we don't have anything on this in our.
No, there's
Okay.
no material distributed. This is not a work session. It's just to give Mr. Brock 15 or so minutes to explain what he has in mind, and he wants to get some perhaps feedback from us about feasibility in the big sense, not about this or that, nuts and bolts. Yep. Yeah. I can't say that here. You can.
I can start whenever you're ready.
Let it rip.
All right. I would have brought my mouse. All right. Well, thank you guys for having this meeting tonight and the opportunity to talk before you. Good evening. My name is F.A. Brock, and I reside at 1306 President Street in Eastport. I want to talk to you about that big, ugly billboard downtown. It is a non-conforming sign that is in the historic district, and it shouldn't exist. It represents a hypocritical exception to the expectation that our laws and historic preservation guidelines should be fairly and equally applied to all property owners downtown. I'm here to present this petition for review by the City of Annapolis' Historic Preservation Commission of a non-conforming billboard sign located at 118 Dock Street, 119 Prince George Street. Got Exhibit 1 here on the screen for you guys. You can see behind me?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So, you're all familiar with this billboard. It's been around for a very long time. Its design changes a little bit, but it's right here. This is Exhibit 1. I took this photo on March 11th, 2025. This large billboard is located at 118 Dock Street. The legal description of the property address is 119 Prince George Street. The existence of this billboard is a glaring affront to our senses, one that severely detracts from the civic beauty of our historic district's character and has long violated several important city laws while flouting your historic design guidelines. The billboard and its current advertising sign have no historical relevance. In stark contrast to neighboring historic structures, its ridiculously large scale and unpleasant content, often featuring large dead cockroaches, cheapens the value of our most visible, culturally significant, and visited part of the city of Annapolis, our City Dock. For the last 2 decades, I'm going to make the argument that the city has had the opportunity to address and remove this non-conforming sign through enforcement, but has failed to do so. This petition will demonstrate the necessity of a comprehensive review and why it should be found to be removed. This petition asks the Historic Preservation Commission to use its jurisdictional authority and evaluate the status of this billboard by using the laws of the Municipal Code of the City of Annapolis, in addition to its own guidelines detailed in the design manual Building in the 4th Century, to do the following things. 1. Find that this billboard is non-compliant with numerous laws found in the city code. 2. Establish that the billboard lost its former status as an allowable, continued use, non-conforming sign long ago. 3. Determine if a long-standing violation has in fact existed uncorrected in clear public view at this property. 4. Correct this violation by issuing a ruling in coordination with city officials that leads to the final removal of this unpermitted, unapproved, non-conforming billboard sign. The HPC, I'm going to move to Exhibit 2. The HPC should also ask the City Office of Law and the Department of Zoning to investigate if the property owner willfully intended to circumvent city law and HPC guidelines by not applying for the required certificates of approval and permits each time this advertising sign on the billboard was changed in appearance from how it existed prior to the passage of any relevant laws or zoning codes. It should be determined whether an infraction under 21, 56, 120 historic preservation violations has been committed and whether remedies can be sought. All residents, visitors, and small business owners in Annapolis will benefit from an outcome that leads to the long overdue removal of this public nuisance. A review process that allows the billboard's existence to continue violating the city's laws and HPC design guidelines will require providing our public with a clear, legally sound explanation as to why this structure and its property owner should be exempted from complying with the same applicable laws and guidelines that all others in the city, particularly the historic district, must follow. Once the facts presented here are considered, however, it will be difficult to conclude and no justifiable explanation will be acceptable. Any ruling that does not result in the process that leads to this sign's removal will risk several things: delegitimizing the role of the Historic Preservation Commission's review process. It will set an unacceptable precedent for future similar cases before the HPC. It will cause reputational harm and increase residents' distrust in the fairness of our city's administrative processes. And it will exacerbate the perception that certain property owners are afforded a degree of favoritism while others are not in similar proceedings. To borrow a quote from a recently published Capital Gazette article of the CEO of Historic Annapolis, Karen Thymer Brown, Exhibit 3, all property owners must be subject to the same standard of review and abide by the same rules as every other property owner in the historic district. Let's begin.
Effie?
Yes.
You have 15 minutes. You're 5 into it.
Thank
Are
you.
we just beginning?
I'll expedite this. I'll walk a little fast. Multiple changes to this sign's content have occurred without required approvals from the Historic Preservation Commission. 118 Dock Street, 119 Prince George Street is situated in the city's historical district and zoned C2, Exhibit 4. This is from the City of Annapolis's interactive zoning map. Properties in the historic district are subject to strict legal requirements for the approval of exterior changes. You know this. This includes a certificate of approval from the HPC prior to changes being made. This requirement is detailed in the Historic District chapter of the City Code, specifically 217090A, Signs in the Historic District, Exhibit 5. The language is clear and unambiguous. A certificate of approval from the HPC is required for all new signs and existing signs that are to be altered in size, shape, content, or location. The use of all and existing signs includes this billboard. There are no exceptions to this requirement. No exemptions single out this existing billboard from all other signs in the historic district. I grew up in the Annapolis area since around 2004. I've been a city resident since 2020, and I've witnessed many changes to this sign's content over the last 2 decades. Due to its unfortunate location, unsightliness, and magnitude, it is hard not to notice when this sign changes. The next exhibit, Exhibit 6, provides evidence of at least 3 changes in the sign's content since 2015. Using archival photography from Google Maps' Street View, you can see the sign has changed from 2015 to 2018, 2021, and 2021 is different than how it appears today in Exhibit 1. Despite these changes, the city does not possess any documentation of applications by the property owners for certificates of approval from your body, from the HPC, because there is no evidence the property owners have ever applied for them. In 2024, a Maryland Public Information Act was filed with the city asking for all applications for certificates of approval from the HPC for the billboard on the property at 118 Dock Street, 119 Prince George Street. Exhibit 7. The City Attorney Michael Lyles at the Office of Law responded that there are currently no existing records related to this matter. Additionally, although it's not expressly the case here, it's also important to state that the City Code does not provide any language indicating that were a property owner to have once been granted a certificate of approval by exception for, say, a billboard sign that would otherwise not customarily be approved and denied by the HPC, that this applicant is then forever exempted from having to file applications for certificates of approval for future changes. The property owner at 118 Dock Street could have thus been required to apply for a certificate of approval from the HPC each and every time prior to changing the content advertised on the billboard sign. Multiple changes have been made to the content of this billboard sign without any necessary applications or certificates of approval granted by your commission. No qualifying exemptions would have negated the requirement of the property owner to have applied for a certificate of approval from you prior to these changes being made. This demonstrates a noncompliance with 2170-90A and 2156-120A. I messed up my order. The sign on the billboard has been taken down and re-erected multiple times without the required permits from the Department of Planning and Zoning. In the Municipal Code section dealing with sign regulations, 2170-20, applicability, Exhibit 8, states, no signs except signs exempted by this chapter may be erected unless a sign permit has been issued by the Director of Planning and Zoning, pursuant to Chapter 1760. So, is this an exempt sign? That's really the question. What is an exempt sign? Chapter 2170-60, exempt signs, Exhibit 9. We'll detail what constitutes an exempt sign that wouldn't require a permit from the Department of Planning and Zoning. This one doesn't have one. The signs in this section are exempt from this chapter and do not require a permit, provided they meet both the standards applicable to all signs in the previous section and the following standards. So the question is this sign an exempt sign? This billboard does not violate 2170-60A. It does not project beyond the property line into a public way, but it is non-compliant with 2170-60B. It is illuminated by a spotlight at its base that was not part of the original structure. It is also non-compliant with the standards applicable to all signs referenced here as a requirement for its exemption from DPZ permitting requirements. In Chapter 2170-50, standards applicable to all signs, it is specifically non-compliant with 2170-50B, computations of area and height, with area and height further restricted by 2170-80, signs in non-residential districts. This will be Exhibits 11 and 12. And 2170-50E, design aspects, Exhibit 16. Let's talk about the size. The billboard's total height can be measured, apologies. Yes. I'm talking too loud? Sure. Want your attention. For computations of area and height, regarding area, the code states that to computate the area of a sign's face, which is also the sign area of a wall sign or other sign with only one face, it shall be computed by the means of only the small square, circle, rectangle, or triangle, or combination thereof that will encompass the extreme limits of the writing representation, emblem, or other display. I'm going to skip it for the purpose of time here, because you can read it. Area and height. The billboard sign measures about 25 feet by 12 feet. This is roughly 300 square feet total. Regarding height, height is computed a little differently because the sign is the area of the sign, but the height is the height of the structure based on this definition. So how high is the billboard? It's quite tall. I'll tell you how tall. The billboard's total height is about 24 feet tall. I have some photos. Limitations on dimensions for signs are located on properties located in Zone C2 can be found in Chapter 217080, Signs in Non-Residential Districts, with Sign Table 1 listing the types of allowable signs in this part of the historic district. You'll see billboards are not on here. You can have a wall-mounted sign or a sidewalk sign. Sign Table 2 regulates the dimensions for allowable signs as 1 square foot per linear foot of building frontage up to a maximum of 30 feet. Even if it were an allowable sign for C2, which it is not, this billboard signs area is far too large and is non-compliant with this limitation. Let's see how big it looks. The actual building on the city dock facing side of the property, 118 Dock Street, houses a commercial tenant, Pips Dock Street Dogs. It's delicious. Go eat there. Pips' frontage is about 22 linear feet. I measured this using Google Earth. The map has a tool that you can measure from. So it's 22 linear feet. Pips has a simple, charming, and traditional sign that is compliant with the city's sign regulations and your guidelines. It measures about 9 feet by 1 feet, so 9 square feet total, well under the permissible 22-foot square total maximum based on Pips' frontage at this address. The billboard sign, however, is a little bit bigger than that. And you can see I measured it here. It's about 25 feet. So the billboard signs area is 25 by 12, roughly 300 square feet total. This is about 900 square feet greater than the 30 square foot maximum allowed for signs, for wall-mounted signs in Zone C2. And it's 1,260% larger than the 22 square foot limitation if it were based on the address's frontage, if it were an allowable type of sign. Another way to be putting this would be to say this sign is about 9 to 13 times too big.
Sir, could I interrupt just for one moment?
Sure thing.
You've gone a little over the 15 minutes, but you have been so well prepared.
I really am quite close to the end.
That's what I was going to ask.
Thank you, sir.
Please proceed.
Thank you, sir. It's important to the public, conservation organizations, and the HPC that structures located prominently in our historic district are compatible in scale and appearance with their neighboring surroundings. Evidence of this can be found in recent comments, publications, and press releases spearheaded by Historic Annapolis's efforts to encourage their members and supporters to oppose earlier designs of the Harbor Master's office and Welcome Center due to its perceived large size. The HPC took Historic Annapolis's concerns sincerely and encouraged a redesign from project architects that resulted in a significant reduction to its size. Historic Annapolis's most stressed point of opposition to the new Maritime Welcome Center is the building's planned height, scale, and conformity with its surroundings, perhaps only due to a weak reliance on a mischaracterization of the newly planned building as an addition to the Burtis House. That's for another time. This billboard's towering height, its absurd scale, and lack of conformity with its historical surroundings should similarly factor into any review of yours. At a towering 24 feet tall, this building actually overshadows each of the neighboring buildings' ridgelines by 3 feet, a little over 3 feet, closer to 4, and it obliterates the public's view of a historic property behind it at 120 Prince George Street from a wide swath of the sidewalk's vantage points. Even if it were an allowable C2 sign type, which it isn't, this billboard's massive sign unfortunately makes it the largest sign in the historical district. It would render it non-compliant with the limitations set by 217080. We're at the end. The city's laws reflect a clear intent to specifically prohibit billboards. Billboards are expressly prohibited by 217040. Prohibited signs, Exhibit 17 here. 217090C, signs in the historic district, which was Exhibit 5, also says, no commercial sign, billboard, or other advertising structure or device shall be painted on any exterior wall of the building in the historic district. Prohibited signs. The purpose of our codes here is to make sure to encourage the effective use of signs as a means of communication in the city, to maintain and enhance the aesthetic environment and promote pedestrian and traffic safety, to minimize the possible adverse effects of signs on nearby public and private property, and to enable the fair and consistent enforcement of these regulations. This billboard sign is ugly. Removing it will enhance the aesthetic environment. Correcting this violation is long overdue and will provide an opportunity to demonstrate the ability of the HPC and the city's leadership to be fair and consistent in its enforcement. Unless some other legal exemption can be argued and sustained, this property must be treated the same as every other in the historic district. While the response from the city attorney in Exhibit 7 says, it is considered legal non-conforming and predates the city's historic district ordinance, this declaration reflects an incomplete assessment of the issues raised by the sign's changes over recent years that have occurred without the legally required approval or permitting process being followed. I ask you to provide a declarative finding in the opposite, that the sign is no longer considered a legal conforming sign to use, a status it lost long ago. When did it lose its legal non-conforming use status? We need to look at the relevant code section, 2170-100. This is the last one. Non-conforming signs, and the most important one for your deliberation. Part B here reads, other signs existing at the time of the adoption of this zoning code and not conforming to its provisions, but which did conform to previous laws, shall be regarded as non-conforming signs which may be continued if properly repaired and maintained as provided by this chapter. A straightforward interpretation of this would lead one to understand that if a sign doesn't conform to our current laws and it exists as it did prior to their passage, that sign is regarded as a non-conforming sign which may be continued, provided it's maintained as provided in this chapter. Whatever sign existed on this billboard when it was originally covered by this clause has not been maintained because it has been altered and replaced numerous times. Part C here reads, non-conforming signs which are structurally altered, replaced, relocated, shall comply immediately with all provisions of this chapter. This petition has shown that the non-conforming billboard sign has been replaced at least 3 times since 2015. The billboard has also been structurally altered to affix the number 001007 permanently on it. You can look between Exhibits 6 and 1. When this sign lost its status under 2170-100B, it became necessary for it to comply with all other provisions of 2170 sign regulations. It means that if the property owners had originally followed the law and applied for a certificate of approval from the HPC when they first planned to alter the sign's content, post-passage of the Historic District Ordinance and zoning codes, then the Historic Preservation Commission's review would have likely found that any replacement of a non-conforming sign would cause a loss of its status as non-conforming use, which may be continued, thus triggering 2170-100C, calling for the immediate compliance with all other provisions of the chapter and 2170 sign regulations. And because billboards are expressly prohibited under 2170-40 prohibited signs, this would have given the city the opportunity to do what it intended by passing these laws, by beautifying these public spaces, by removing unsightly signs, and ordering its removal. While the Office of Law has a penchant for worrying about litigious property owners, the Historic Preservation Commission must consider the facts here and treat this situation the same as they would for any other property owner. By law, my interpretation is, the first instance this non-conforming billboard sign changed, following the adoption of the zoning code, it instantly lost any status as permissible continued use. Because it is a billboard, there is no way for it to comply with the chapters and sign regulations, which expressly prohibit billboards. The HPC and city should find cause for ordering its removal. One other comment. Because when it gets addressed, someone will inevitably say, well, it existed prior to the zoning code change and prior to these laws. Everything in your jurisdiction that comes before you in the Historic Preservation Commission existed prior to the passage of these zoning laws and your sign design guidelines. Everything you touch existed prior to the passage of these laws. Thank you.
Thank you for a very compelling and thorough presentation. I don't believe that a citizen has come before me, even when I sat on the Planning Commission for 30 years, so well prepared. Having said that, I want to ask you a couple of questions just for clarification. And given the time, and I think the most expeditious use of our time going forward, I hope you'll let me just ask a few questions and then suggest.
If I can answer them, I will.
Okay. Are you an attorney?
I'm not an attorney.
Have you consulted with an attorney to review the presentation you made? It sounds very professional, and I'm not asking this because I have any problem. I'm just trying to.
For the record, I have not consulted any attorney to go over this presentation.
Okay.
I have consulted our sign law, which I started researching when I tried to figure out what to do about the proliferation of snipe signs in my neighborhood. And I saw this statute about the billboard being prohibited. And I thought, well, I've lived here for a very long time, and that billboard is there. And so I read more about the sign law, and I thought, well, this billboard has changed. Has no one addressed this as long as I've been alive? And you may tell me that the answer is no. No one has ever taken a real good look at this.
As far as I know, no one ever has.
Well, I think
And
maybe
have
it's
asked
about time.
repeatedly. So I agree with you that it's about time. I just have two more questions. Have you discussed this with your alderman, who has been very concerned about signs throughout the city and who essentially drafted the current sign ordinance? And I heard hours of testimony about it. So I can attest personally to how thorough your research was.
Thank you. I'm not sure
Who
which.
is your older person?
I was just about to say, for the record, I'm in District 6 now. Alderman Gay is my alderman. For the years that we were renting prior to owning downtown in Eastport, it was Alderman Arnett prior.
Alderman Arnett is who I'm referring to.
Okay. Yes, this is in Ward 1.
That's where I was going next. Have you discussed it with Alderman Huntley?
Perhaps in passing, not at length, no review of this
Okay.
petition.
All right, my last question specifically, what are you asking of the HPC?
Thank you for that question. It's hard to ask something when I'm not an applicant before you.
Right.
But my ask here would be this. Ask yourselves, does the code provide any exemption for this sign to have changed without an application before your body for a certificate of approval to review the change prior to the change? If an exemption cannot be applied by you reasonably, then I want you to ask two questions. Is the law clear and unambiguous, and should an application have been applied for? Why wasn't it? That may be a better question for the Office of Law or the Director of Planning and Zoning. Relevant question for you. If this sign was to be planned to be changed later this year, would you expect a certificate of approval or an application for a certificate of approval before you? Or does some exemption I couldn't find apply here?
I can give you my answer, but I'm not a lawyer nor empowered to make that decision for the city. But I will promise you to do this. I would ask that you submit what your presentation was electronically so that it could be disseminated to all the commissioners. And we will put it on our administrative business agenda for the fourth Thursday of this month for discussion. And in the interim, I will reach out to the Office of Law and the Planning Director and the Mayor, if necessary, to get input on how we might address this request.
This is a hot topic for them. They're not
I know it's
excited
a hot topic.
they're not excited to engage, and they would like anything more than directed, pointed questions about, well, what exemption does here apply? Yes. Yes. I got to do that. Yeah.
Every time you push back, then you move forward. That nullifies you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. I had a double ear infection 2 winters ago, and my sense of sound is not so excellent. So I actually can't hear myself very well.
I have 2 questions for you, John. First one is the only answer that I did not see in here is this billboard exempt? And then I guess the follow up is, why has a violation not been issued? Is there a reason that we are not hearing tonight that maybe there is some longstanding exemption, or there's a reason that a violation has not been issued?
John,
The short
John?
answer. Yeah.
you want me to answer that?
Go ahead.
Political third rail. I'm serious. I've been after. I hate the sign. I've always hated the sign. I've talked to all my aldermen. I've talked to all the mayors. Nobody wants to take it up. This is the work that somebody needed to do. I mean, I suppose I could have done it, but I'm not an attorney, and I didn't. Like,
So my theory is, depending on what your answer is, if it's not exempt and there's no
It's
real
not.
reason why there hasn't been a violation,
Let me
then-
tell you, it's not quite that simple. And I will be happy to share with you when you get this some of the response. I want to make sure you understand. I ask about this and talk about it all the time.
So do I.
Even before I started my conversations with Mr. Brock here, and I don't understand the logic that leaves it in place. Now, there are legal restrictions about what can be done to remove income producing property within the historic district.
What I would say is, unless there is a reason that the city has it, and I'm not necessarily moving for this, but I would say that we don't need to put it up for an administrative meeting. What we should say is the applicant has 12 months to remove, or excuse me, the owner has 12 months to remove the sign, or at the end of the current contract, the sign must be removed within 60 days. With no option periods to be allowed.
But here's the rub.
Exercise.
Here's the rub. I would do that if I thought I could do that, or we could do that as a group. The city has refused to do that. And I have never had the excellent documentation and the legal rationale that's been presented by Mr. Brock. So I'm going to take that and run with it.
Are we able to file a motion to say
No,
Okay.
we don't have a formal
No, we don't.
application before us.
And it's an enforcement issue. So even if
It
we would
is.
say we want this to happen, it's the classic thing where government, for some reason, decides not to exercise its authority. We can't do that for ourselves. The city has to do it through the enforcement and law office.
On the topic of on the
Sorry?
topic of the
Lisa
Lisa-
Minker?
Well, you can come in and see Lisa's response.
She has a response. Okay.
Oh, let me tell you, this is
not new.
This train
Even
has
though
gone,
he thinks
gone
it is,
down
it's
the
not.
track.
Well,
quite a
I know
bit.
it's not new, but I wasn't
the
sure if
question
him
is,
coming forward opens
how
up the
can
floor.
this be
No,
removed?
No. This is all
How
we can
can
do.
this be?
I know a lot of
removed?
people are afraid to come forward because of the blowback, so that's why I wasn't sure if that's why maybe.
Well, no fear here. I'm.
So
I'd love to see it gone.
Wait,
if
what-
a property owner were economically bound to an agreement, as you suggested, to let the term of the contract run out, what would stop other property owners from looking at this precedent set and saying, ooh, before HPC regulates something I'm doing, I'm going to quickly tie myself into a commercial agreement, and suddenly now my property is a revenue producing structure on it, and I'm sorry, but you can't be enjoined from making me comply with your zoning laws and design guidelines? That's not an exception.
I
in the
wouldn't
law.
take that approach to this one in particular.
Right. I'm just
it
saying
seems
that-
like it's more complicated.
That would be
but-
my concern with the precedent allowed by, saying, well, it's economical,
Meet me.
Ladies and
I will,
gentlemen.
Sorry.
I will
Ladies
share
and gentlemen.
information, and you can dive right in.
Can you
Yeah.
just send
So,
it to
yes,
us?
send it to
though,
us.
please, John.
We're going to all review it.
Yes.
And it will be on the agenda for our meeting on the fourth Thursday of this month. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Thank you.
I mean, for just for the sake of the record, I mean, why are we going to review it administratively if we can't do anything about it?
No. I think we all should read his argument.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty
Well,
cut and
I
dry.
think it is cut and dried, I think, but I don't think that we can proceed in any way, not even
without
from-
having an administrative session on it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay. No, this
Right.
is not a public hearing, because my understanding of the law as it applies to us and the powers that are assigned to us, we can't make anything happen to address this issue. But we can certainly agree that we can take a position on the issue and share that with anyone. But I would go through the channels to move it as far as I could first.
So to Harry Huntley listening, if you introduce legislation that allows us to enact a violation, then we'll do it.
I don't know how you address other violations if people don't bring them to your attention.
We don't.
Yeah.
We don't.
Oh, it is a zoning.
I addressed them.
Yeah.
If you write legislation with Harry Huntley that gives us the power to issue that,
Or
then we
Brooks
can.
Schandelmeyer, Ward 5.
I mean, I probably will at this point, try and create a ticket for zoning to have to address my full complaint here.
Yeah.
Because background from what I heard of their response, I mean, it's not sufficient for me to just say that it's
Right.
exempt. It
And
doesn't
we
really
have
dig.
no
It doesn't really dig into the actual minutia of.
We have no
Of the
authority
laws,
to take
yeah.
what you've
I-
given
I know.
us or are going to give us and make it have any real impact
Aware of
on
that
the
too.
sign.
That's why I asked
So-
for in coordination
Well,
with.
you could write a bill with Harry that gives us that authority.
This is
I am just a resident.
Right.
This
Give
is
us-
on
give
on
us
the other hand.
documentation.
Will do. I'll email. We'll
Cecil.
make sure it gets to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to say thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
I'm glad that we gave you a
Thanks for
platform.
doing the work.
Get some sleep. I really appreciate the avenue to air this issue out and just get it in the public record. Again, I'm amazed that it hasn't ever been formally addressed to my knowledge until now. So about
I can
time.
speak for 37 years.
Yeah.
Has-
Thank you. Sorry, I keep talking loud.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Really, thanks for your time.
Motion
Very
to
much
adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.